The Galactic Empire's vast influence stretched across countless star systems, a cruel testament to its power. For centuries, it had subdued alien races, extinguished rebellious civilizations, and maintained an iron grip on the galaxy. The Empire, with its relentless military might, had crushed everything in its path, making it seem as though nothing could stand against its might. Its leaders believed that they were invincible, that no force in the galaxy could challenge their dominance. They had conquered entire species, enslaved planets, and wiped out civilizations that dared to resist. The Empire was the epitome of order and control in the galaxy. It was absolute. But there was one force the Empire had failed to understand, a force they underestimated, time and time again. Humanity. In the eyes of the Empire's high command, humans were primitive, unworthy of their attention. The early days of human space exploration had shown little more than a chaotic species with limited technology. Their presence in the galaxy was negligible, their colonies insignificant. But then, things started to change. The humans, long thought to be harmless, began to stir. They fought back. They struck covertly, disrupting the Empire's operations, sabotaging their fleets, and causing chaos in ways that the Empire couldn't predict. The humans were unpredictable, their tactics were unconventional, and worst of all, they had something the Empire couldn't calculate: resourcefulness. At the heart of this unexpected resistance was Max Wilder, a name that struck fear into the hearts of Imperial commanders. He was no ordinary soldier. Max was a former sniper in the special forces of the human military, a man who had long since become a legend in the Resistance. His reputation as a ghost sniper was unmatched. No one had ever seen him strike, but when he did, his targets never survived. His precision and ability to remain unseen made him a deadly figure. Over the years, Max's strikes against the Empire's military infrastructure had crippled supply lines, decimated key targets, and left the Empire scrambling to contain the damage. But despite all the efforts to find him, Max remained elusive. He was a ghost, a shadow in the vastness of space. For years, Max had evaded detection. The Empire's intelligence had searched for him relentlessly, but he always seemed to be one step ahead. The strikes he carried out were surgical, precise, and devastating. The Empire's military, with its vast arsenal and technological superiority, was no match for the ingenuity of one human man who had mastered the art of war in ways they could not understand. But the Empire, like all great powers, refused to acknowledge its vulnerabilities. They viewed humanity as a nuisance, an annoyance to be dealt with in time. However, with each successful mission, Max Wilder was becoming a growing threat. No matter how many planets the Empire subdued, no matter how many rebellions they quashed, the human sniper seemed to always find a way to strike at their most vulnerable points. The High Command had grown weary of the constant disruption. No more would they allow a mere human to chip away at their empire. The decision was made: Max Wilder would be silenced, once and for all. This would not be a simple task. The Empire needed the best. They needed something more than their usual military might, something more than their fleet of warships and legions of soldiers. They needed assassins. The Empire had its own secret weapon, genetically engineered assassins, created for one singular purpose: to eliminate threats with lethal precision. These assassins were not like ordinary soldiers. They were bred for speed, strength, and stealth. They could move undetected in the shadows, eliminate their targets with clinical efficiency, and leave no trace of their presence. They were perfect for the job. The High Command selected a team of 4 elite assassins, each handpicked for their unique abilities. These were the Empire's best, designed to hunt and kill without mercy. Among them was Corinne, a former scientist who had once helped the Empire develop its deadly assassins. He had once been an intellectual, a man of science, but the Empire had twisted him into something else, an instrument of death. Corinne was the brains of the operation, the strategist. He was meticulous and calculating, able to predict his enemies' moves before they even made them. Alongside him were Jekyll, a brute of a soldier whose strength and aggression were unparalleled; Zira, a silent killer who could blend into any environment and eliminate her targets with poisonous precision; and Vecker, a tech specialist whose knowledge of Imperial systems allowed him to hack into and control enemy technology. Together, they were a deadly team, and they were dispatched to the remote world where Max Wilder was believed to be hiding. They had no doubt that this would be an easy mission. The humans were nothing compared to the might of the Empire, they believed. They thought of Max Wilder as just another nuisance, a mere man who could be disposed of with ease. They were wrong. As the assassins arrived on the planet, their plan was simple. They would track Max down, corner him, and eliminate him with their superior technology and skills. The planet, once a thriving hub of human colonization, had fallen into ruin after years of war and Imperial occupation. It was the perfect place to hunt a ghost, desolate, broken, and filled with the remnants of human history. The assassins descended on the planet like shadows, silently moving through the wreckage, their movements calculated and swift. Max Wilder, however, had already anticipated their arrival. He had known the Empire would send their best. He had been preparing for this moment for years. He knew they would underestimate him, just as they had done before. The Empire's reliance on brute force and advanced technology had always been their downfall. Max knew the weaknesses they couldn't see, the gaps in their plans. From the moment the assassins set foot on the planet, Max was already several steps ahead. Using the planet's terrain to his advantage, he lay in wait, watching, calculating his next move. He knew that they would come for him, but what they didn't know was that he had prepared for this exact moment. The Empire had underestimated him once again. As the assassins began their search, they found themselves increasingly frustrated. Despite their superior technology, Max Wilder was nowhere to be found. They scoured the ruins, their sensors picking up nothing, their systems failing to detect his presence. The human sniper had already slipped through their fingers. The first sign of trouble came when Zira, the quietest and most efficient of the assassins, disappeared. One moment she was there, and the next, she was gone. The team immediately went on high alert, but it was too late. Zira's body was found days later, a single bullet lodged in her skull, her death a perfect execution by a sniper's hand. The assassins were shaken, but they pressed on. Max Wilder was proving to be more than just a human, they were facing something else, something they couldn't predict. They had missed their target once, but Max Wilder wouldn't miss again. The assassins were on high alert now. The tension in the air was palpable as they searched the desolate, war-torn world. Their mission seemed simple at first, find Max Wilder, the elusive human sniper who had become a thorn in the Empire's side. But the moment they lost Zira, they realized how dangerous their target really was. Zira's death, clean and efficient, sent a chilling message. Max Wilder wasn't just a threat, he was a ghost, a specter that could slip through their most sophisticated technology and strike when they least expected it. Corinne, the strategist, was the first to recognize the gravity of their situation. His mind, once sharp with calculations of probability, now churned with doubts. They had underestimated Max. But it was too late for second-guessing. The Empire had already committed its resources to this mission, and there was no going back. He turned to his team, trying to rally them. Focus. Zira's death is a warning, not a defeat, Corinne said, his voice steady despite the unease settling over the group. Max Wilder has learned how to evade detection, but we are the best the Empire has. We are the ones who will end this. Jekyll, the brute force assassin, grunted. We're wasting time. He's just a man. We should burn the whole planet down if we have to. No, Corinne replied sharply. We need precision. This isn't a sledgehammer job. We can't just go in blind. Max is not like the others we've dealt with. He's resourceful. The team had no choice but to follow Corinne's direction. They moved through the ruins of the city with methodical precision, their enhanced senses scanning every corner, every shadow. They used drones, thermal sensors, and infrared scans to map out the terrain, but every time they thought they had him cornered, Max slipped away, like a shadow in the night. The assassins could feel the pressure mounting. Vecker, the tech specialist, had been using his expertise to hack into the local systems, trying to find Max's location. But Max was one step ahead, always staying just out of reach. The more they relied on technology, the more it seemed to betray them. The planet's old communication infrastructure, once a network of advanced systems, had been damaged in previous conflicts, leaving the assassins' tools ineffective. The systems are failing. The tracking signals keep cutting out, Vecker muttered, frustration evident in his voice. We've been chasing ghosts. Corinne didn't respond immediately. He was too focused on the task at hand, piecing together the puzzle. Something was off. They had been here for days, and still, Max eluded them. The planet's conditions, desolate and broken, made it perfect for hiding. Max knew the terrain, and he was using it against them. But there was something else Corinne couldn't ignore. The sniper wasn't just hiding, he was playing with them. The first signs of their miscalculation came when Jekyll, in his impatience, set off a trap. It was a simple thing, a decoy hidden under the rubble, but it was enough to send a wave of electric shock through his system, incapacitating him temporarily. He let out a roar of frustration as he stumbled back, disoriented. "Did you see that?" Vecker asked, his voice low. Corinne nodded grimly. "He's not just avoiding us. He's toying with us." Max Wilder had been studying them, learning their movements. While they used advanced technology, Max relied on his keen instincts and the knowledge of his surroundings. He understood the psychology of hunters. He knew how to stay one step ahead, always keeping his pursuers in the dark. It was a game to him, calculated, cold, and precise. And Corinne began to understand that he wasn't just facing a sniper. He was up against a strategist, a mind that had evolved to outthink its enemies. The Empire's assassins, though they were superior in many ways, were not invincible. Max knew their every move before they made it. As days passed, the team grew more frustrated. Their weapons, their technology, their genetic enhancements, all of it seemed useless against a human who seemed to have anticipated their every step. Corinne began to feel the pressure. This was no longer just about completing a mission, it was about survival. They were being hunted, not the other way around. One night, as the team gathered around a small campfire, nursing their wounds and reevaluating their strategy, Corinne had a realization. He had been focused on their technology, their weapons, their enhanced abilities. But those things, while powerful, were not the only tools at their disposal. There was something simpler, something the Empire had long relied on to maintain control: fear. Max Wilder wasn't just a threat because of his skill with a rifle. He was a symbol, a manifestation of human defiance. The humans, the very species the Empire had once thought of as insignificant, were now capable of more than just survival. They were capable of fighting back. Max was a symbol of that fight, a reminder that the Empire's grip on the galaxy was not as unshakable as they believed. Corinne's thoughts drifted to his own past, to the time before he had been transformed into an assassin. He had once been a scientist, someone who believed in the Empire's vision, in its promise of order. But now, as he looked at his team, cold, calculating, devoid of empathy, he felt something stir within him. It wasn't just the respect he had for Max Wilder's tactical genius. It was something deeper. A question had begun to form in his mind, a question he had been avoiding for years. What was the Empire really fighting for? Jekyll, still recovering from his injury, broke Corinne's thoughts with a harsh, grating voice. "This is taking too long. We need to do something. I'm not going to let one human ruin everything we've worked for." Corinne's eyes narrowed, his expression hardening. "We won't rush this. Patience. We track him, we wait for him to make a mistake. He will slip up." Jekyll's fists clenched. "I've had enough of this. If he's out there, we'll hunt him down, no matter what." Corinne's gaze flicked to Vecker, who was silently working on a series of scans, trying to isolate Max's signature. Vecker met his eyes and nodded. He knew Corinne was right. They couldn't afford to make rash decisions. But as they all sat there, a growing sense of doubt lingered. Max Wilder wasn't just outsmarting them, he was eroding their confidence. The more they hunted him, the more it seemed like they were being led into a trap. Corinne was starting to see the cracks in the Empire's foundation, and he knew that the longer they stayed on this planet, the more they risked becoming another casualty in a war that had long since stopped being about victory. They had been hunting the wrong enemy. It wasn't just Max Wilder they should be worried about. It was the idea he represented, the idea of human resilience, of defiance, of fighting against impossible odds. And that, more than any sniper's bullet, was what would bring the Empire to its knees. Max Wilder had known from the beginning that he was playing a dangerous game. The Empire's elite assassins were not to be underestimated, but he had been preparing for this moment for years. They believed they were hunting him, but the truth was, he had been hunting them all along. Each move they made, each mistake they made, only brought him closer to his goal. For days, the assassins had been chasing him through the ruins of the Forgotten City, their every effort to corner him thwarted at every turn. They relied on their superior technology, their genetically enhanced senses, and their lethal training, but Max had anticipated all of it. His understanding of the planet's geography, his expertise in guerrilla warfare, and his ability to stay calm under pressure had given him the upper hand. But what truly set him apart wasn't just his skills, it was his understanding of his enemies. He knew how they thought, and he used that knowledge to his advantage. Max's first encounter with the assassins had been a simple one, a trap. He had planted false signals to mislead them, creating a trail that would lead them deeper into the heart of the city. As they followed his decoy, he silently moved into position, setting up a series of strategic points to force them into a dangerous confrontation. It had been a calculated risk, but it had worked. Zira's death, quick and clean, was a direct result of the plan he had set into motion. The assassins, overconfident in their superiority, hadn't seen it coming. The moment Zira had fallen, Max had felt the shift. The tension in the air had thickened, and the assassins had grown more cautious. The thrill of the hunt, the idea that they were the predators, had started to fade. Max had turned the tables. Now, they were the prey. But Max wasn't just running from them. He wasn't merely evading capture, he was shaping the battlefield. He knew the city inside and out, the crumbling buildings, the underground tunnels, the old weapons caches hidden in plain sight. He had been studying the Empire's movements for years, learning everything he could about their tactics, their weaknesses, and their blind spots. And now, those lessons were paying off. The planet was a relic of past wars, abandoned, desolate, and filled with the remains of past conflicts. To the Empire, it was just another forgotten world, a place they had little interest in. But to Max, it was the perfect battleground. The shattered infrastructure, the wreckage of old battlefields, the ghostly remnants of human colonization, all of it had become a part of his strategy. It was his home turf, and it would be his advantage. Max had always been a master of patience. He knew that in order to defeat the Empire's assassins, he had to outlast them. He couldn't afford to rush things. He couldn't afford to make a mistake. He knew they would eventually make one, and when they did, he would be ready. As the assassins grew more desperate, their search became more erratic. They began to lose their composure. Corinne, the mastermind of the team, had once been calm, calculating, but now his mind was clouded with doubt. The team's strategy had failed. The technology that had once given them the edge was now a hindrance. They couldn't track Max's movements, and every time they thought they had him cornered, he slipped away. Max's ability to stay ahead of them wasn't just due to his tactical prowess, it was his understanding of how fear worked. The assassins were trained to be cold, emotionless killers, but even they had limits. The loss of Zira had shaken them. Jekyll's rashness, Vecker's inability to track Max's signal, and Corinne's growing frustration, each of these cracks in the team's cohesion was a victory for Max. He knew how to break people down, and he wasn't just aiming to kill. He was aiming to disarm them, to make them question their own strength. He wanted to expose their flaws, to show them that no matter how advanced their technology was, no matter how much they had been bred for perfection, they were still human. They were vulnerable. The team's unease grew when Max started using their own weapons against them. He had planted explosives near their camp, rigged their communication systems to send false signals, and hacked into their surveillance drones to turn them into malfunctioning, useless devices. Each time they tried to track him, they found nothing but dead ends. Max had effectively turned their own tools against them, and it was driving them mad. Corinne, who had once been so confident in his ability to predict outcomes, found himself unable to anticipate Max's next move. The sniper was always one step ahead. The plan they had meticulously crafted was falling apart, and there was no one to blame but themselves. They were losing the battle, and they knew it. Max had already won. It was only a matter of time before they were either dead or forced to flee. But Corinne wasn't ready to give up. Despite the growing sense of defeat, he still believed there was a way to catch Max. He knew the human mind better than anyone. He understood the psychology of resistance, the motivations that drove men to fight. And Max Wilder wasn't just a soldier. He was a symbol of something much larger, something the Empire couldn't destroy with bullets or bombs. Corinne began to question everything. As a former scientist, he had once believed in the Empire's ideals. He had been part of the machine that had created these assassins, bred them for one purpose. But now, as he sat in the ruins of a planet that had once been a thriving human colony, he started to see the cracks in the Empire's foundation. Max Wilder was more than just a resistance fighter. He was a symbol of humanity's refusal to be subjugated. And that symbol could not be destroyed. Corinne's internal conflict grew stronger with every passing day. The longer he stayed on the planet, the more he began to question his loyalties. Was the Empire truly the force of order they claimed to be, or was it just another oppressive regime that crushed anyone who dared to defy it? Max, of course, had no intention of giving up. He wasn't just trying to survive, he was trying to change the course of the galaxy. The defeat of these assassins, the ones the Empire had sent to kill him, would send a powerful message. It would show the galaxy that humanity was not weak, that they were not insignificant. It would prove that no matter how powerful the Empire became, the spirit of defiance would always survive. As the assassins closed in on him, Max prepared for the final confrontation. The last pieces of his plan were falling into place. The Empire had sent its best to kill him, and they had failed. Now, they would learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. And as the assassins drew closer, Max Wilder would be waiting. The final confrontation was inevitable. Max Wilder knew it, and so did the assassins. The remnants of the once great city lay silent, its crumbling structures serving as the backdrop for the most important battle of his life. The assassins were closing in, their patience wearing thin. They had underestimated him at every turn, and now, with their numbers dwindling, their arrogance had finally caught up with them. But Max wasn't just outsmarting them, he was about to show them the true power of human resilience. Corinne, the strategist of the assassin team, had reached the breaking point. His mind had been clouded by doubt for days, and now the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. He had come to understand something about Max Wilder that his team had missed. It wasn't just about killing him. It was about understanding why he was so dangerous. Max wasn't just a sniper. He wasn't just a warrior. He was a symbol of everything the Empire feared: human defiance, human ingenuity, and the ability to outthink and outlast their superior technology. Corinne had been bred to be a machine, cold, calculating, inefficient. But even the most lethal assassin could be broken. He had begun to see the cracks in his loyalty, the flaws in the Empire's ideology. What had once been a mission to eliminate a threat had become something far more personal. The more he observed Max's tactics, the more he saw humanity's strength. Max had outsmarted them, not through brute force, but through sheer willpower. He had made them feel fear, not the fear of death, but the fear of defeat, the fear of being shown just how vulnerable they really were. Max, on the other hand, wasn't afraid of what was coming. He had anticipated every move the assassins would make. He had turned the battlefield into a chessboard, manipulating their every step. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about sending a message. The Empire had believed they could crush humanity with ease, but Max was here to prove them wrong. The humans were not to be underestimated. They had already proven it in small skirmishes, in covert victories against overwhelming forces. But this was their moment to prove that no matter how sophisticated the enemy, no matter how advanced their weapons, humanity had something that couldn't be quantified: resilience. Max had already taken out two of the assassins, Zira and Jekyll. Both had underestimated him in different ways. Zira had relied too heavily on her ability to track him, assuming he would stay put long enough for them to corner him. She hadn't accounted for his ability to manipulate his surroundings, his ability to blend into the environment in ways they couldn't understand. Jekyll, on the other hand, had let his impatience cloud his judgment. He had been the first to break their disciplined strategy, charging in without thinking. And now, both were dead. The remaining assassins, Vecker, the tech specialist, and Corinne, the strategist, were all that was left. They knew the odds were against them, but they had no choice. They were the Empire's last hope of eliminating Max Wilder. Failure was not an option. Max knew they were coming. He had laid the trap days ago, knowing that eventually, they would catch up to him. He wasn't just waiting for them to make a mistake, he was waiting for the right moment to strike. And when that moment came, he would make sure they understood the true cost of underestimating humanity. Corinne was the first to reach the designated meeting point. The ruins of a massive cathedral loomed in the distance, its Gothic spires rising like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. It was here that Max had made his stand. The ground was littered with debris, the remnants of a city that had been torn apart by war. The air was thick with the scent of burnt metal and charred wood. This was the battlefield where he would either succeed or fail. Vecker was beside him, scanning the area with his enhanced senses. "There's no sign of him," he muttered. His voice was strained, his earlier confidence replaced by something else, something that bordered on fear. Corinne frowned. "He's here. He has to be. We've tracked him this far. He can't just vanish." Max's presence lingered in the air. Even though he wasn't visible, Corinne could feel him. Max had been playing with them, toying with them, and now the game was coming to its bitter end. But Corinne had learned something in the last few days. Max didn't fight like other soldiers. He didn't use brute force. He used his mind. And now, Corinne would have to outthink him. The silence between the assassins was suffocating. They waited, their eyes scanning every corner of the ruined cathedral. But then, just as they began to think the sniper was gone, the air around them seemed to shift. A faint sound echoed through the ruins, a single shot. The sound was sharp, distinct, but it didn't come from where they expected. Max was toying with them again. Corinne reacted immediately, his instincts kicking in. He motioned for Vecker to move to the left, while he took the right. They fanned out, their weapons raised, ready for whatever was coming next. But the sound of the shot was the only thing they heard. It wasn't the crack of a sniper rifle, it was the sound of a trap being triggered. Before they could react, a loud explosion ripped through the air. A series of mines, carefully placed by Max days ago, detonated in unison, sending a wave of debris and dust into the air. The force of the explosion threw them off balance, knocking them to the ground. The world seemed to spin around them as they struggled to regain their footing. But it wasn't over. As the smoke cleared, Corinne could make out Max's silhouette in the distance. He was standing tall, his rifle aimed directly at them. But this time, Max wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, Corinne's worst fear materialized before him. The human had turned one of the Empire's own against them. Vecker, the tech specialist, staggered to his feet, his eyes wide in disbelief. How did you? Corinne's eyes flicked between Max and the figure standing beside him. It was Corinne's former associate, a fellow scientist who had once worked with him to create the Empire's elite soldiers. But now, this scientist had joined the human cause. Corinne's heart sank. The truth was clear. The Empire had created its own downfall. It had bred Max Wilder, and in doing so, it had unknowingly nurtured a force that could not be controlled. The figure stepped forward, holding a device that emitted a low hum. "I've seen enough," the scientist said quietly. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Max's voice was cold, but steady. You made the right choice. You don't have to keep running. Corinne felt the weight of their failure settle over him. This wasn't just a defeat. It was the collapse of everything he had believed in. The Empire's control, its superiority, its relentless pursuit of power, it had all led to this. They had underestimated humanity, and now, they were paying the price. Max's shot rang out one last time. Vecker fell, his body crumpling to the ground. Corinne stood frozen, his mind unable to process what had just happened. The last of the assassins were gone, and Max Wilder, the human sniper, had won. The Empire would never know the true cost of this failure. But humanity had proven something. It had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, even against the most powerful forces in the galaxy, the human spirit could not be crushed. Max Wilder, the man who had become a symbol of defiance, had just changed the course of history.